and I am just going to film a really quick video on breathing tics. Now, just a trigger warning, sometimes if I talk about tics, people might start doing them or pick them up. So just a warning, I don't want anybody to pick up these breathing tics that I'm going to be discussing. So if this could trigger off some breathing tics, then you may not want to watch this or maybe skip some bits. But I think it's important to talk about breathing tics because they are a tic that can sometimes be hidden but incredibly frustrating. So breathing tics can be different for everybody, but they can include forceful exhaling, where people may breathe out really quickly with a lot of effort. People might breathe in patterns, sometimes very specific patterns, and sometimes people may look like they're hyperventilating. Some people might actually hold their breath for long periods of time, and that can be really distressing for some people. Some people may feel as if they cannot satisfy the breath. I had one where I had this sensation in my chest, and my family were even questioning, do I have some sort of chest infection? Because the urge accumulates and it felt as if I could not breathe because the sensation was there. So although it didn't look like an actual tic, it was the premonitory sensation that was there. Some people might also have tics where they tense muscles, sometimes in the chest area, and that might make it very difficult to breathe. For example, I had a tic where I sort of tensed one side of my body like that, and because I was doing that, it also kind of tensed my chest up as well, and that made it very difficult to breathe because I wasn't getting as much oxygen or air in as I should, and that can be incredibly frustrating and can have a lot of negative implications. It is important not to confuse breathing tics with sensory motor OCD though, because sensory motor OCD is where people may not be able to get their sensation off of something such as their breathing or blinking or swallowing. But with sensory motor OCD, it's more about the awareness and anxiety. People might be scared that they may never get their awareness off of it, which is why it's always there. And people might also, with sensory motor OCD, they may worry about breathing in the right way, whereas with a breathing tic, it's usually semi-voluntary because it's the premonitory urge, but sensation-based rather than anxiety-based. To cope with anxiety, sometimes people do breathing exercises, which can be beneficial for some people, but for some of us with Tourette's and tic disorders, doing breathing exercises may actually trigger breathing tics because our brain gets this idea like, let's do this for a tic, and then it's incredibly bothersome. But some of the consequences from having breathing tics can include having numb and cold fingers and toes, and that can be really annoying. I have had times where my fingers actually feel ice cold because I was having so many breathing tics. Sometimes you get really lightheaded and dizzy. I remember at school once I was having breathing tics and I was just so lightheaded. I was like, ugh. And there have been times as well where I have that tic where I tense up one side of my body, where my chest is like tensed up as well. I would try to exercise. You probably shouldn't exercise if you're having breathing tics, by the way. But then I'd get really lightheaded because I would have hardly any oxygenation. Some people, it can cause a lot of distress. People who have these breath holding tics genuinely feel like they are struggling to breathe, and people might even pass out if these breath holding tics happen so often, and it can happen when people are having tic attacks as well, so that can be incredibly distressing. And as I said, some people might be wondering, like, do I have some sort of cold or chest infection? Because there was once in school when I was getting really sort of distressed because I could feel the sensation accumulating. It felt like I couldn't breathe, so I was like, is it an infection? But no, it was just the sensation for a breathing tic. And again, it can make trying to exercise or doing physical activity very difficult if you're not getting the oxygen in, and can be harmful for the body, of course, because you need oxygen, but with a breathing tic, it's very difficult. And when you're having breathing tics, it's very difficult to manage. What I usually do, it's different for everybody, but what I usually do is I just try and do something to focus on something else. I try to distract myself when I'm having breathing tics. That's not necessarily beneficial for sensory motor OCD, but for breathing tics, if you're focusing on something else, then you're absorbed in something. Like, some people find that being absorbed in something such as music or creativity or researching or watching something can decrease tics. So sometimes just being absorbed in something may be able to reduce it. Some people, maybe having a bath might help, a cold bath or something, but it's different for everybody. And for me, breathing tics, distraction seems to help. But if you have any other tips for dealing with breathing tics or have experiences with it yourself, please comment it down below. And thank you for watching. Bye!